Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to officially welcome you to today's webinar entitled New Normal Na? Game Ka Na Ba? This webinar is the first of the four-part webinar series of the Master of Management students of the Institute of Management of the University of the Philippines, Baguio. Our webinar series entitled Transitioning to the New and Next Normal, Challenges, Risks, and Opportunities is a virtual lifelong learning seminars in management. My name is Christine Chan, and I will be your host for today. Before we start, I would like to acknowledge the presence of our seminar advisor, Dr. Erlinda Palaganas. She is a faculty of the Institute of Management, College of Social Sciences, University of the Philippines, Baguio. We also have here with us today Professor Junli Lorenzana Lazaga, Head of UP Baguio Office of Public Affairs. Thank you for your support and for joining us today. To kick off our program, please focus your attention to the screen as we will show you an infomercial of the Master of Management program of the University of the Philippines, Baguio.
Here, we honor excellence. We respect diversity. We go beyond our limits. We celebrate knowledge. But we don't forget to have fun and share stories of friendship and teamwork. We encourage. We're family. We live in the moment. And we lead. University of the Philippines, Baguio, Master of Management, shaping leaders and developing management.
Let us now have Joanna Marie Galvan for our opening prayer.
Please bow our heads and feel the presence of the Lord. Dear God, thank you for all the blessings you have given us. Thank you for allowing us to meet today and share our knowledge and time with one another in this webinar. May you extend your divine wisdom to our speakers so that they may be able to effectively impart your God-given knowledge to all of us. May they be blessed as they continue to bring their expertise to people who need them. Bless the participants so that they would be able to obtain the vital information from this activity. Please guide the organizers as well so that they may realize that this activity should glorify your name. May you bestow your blessings after this seminar so we may go out and spread what we learned in the spirit of your love and generosity. All this we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Up next is Sedi Flores to give us some reminders for the webinar. Take it away, Sedi.
Thank you very much, Ms. Christine Chan. So before we begin, kindly take note of the following house rules. First, we encourage everyone to turn on your cameras. We would love to see your beautiful faces. Second, kindly mute your microphone so that we can clearly hear and understand our speakers. You may jot down your questions and ask them later during the question and answer portion. Or you may use the question and answer chat box so that we can read the questions during the question and answer portion. If you would like to speak, please click the raise hand button. Please be mindful of your messages. Only appropriate messages and comments should be posted in the chat box. Let us show our respect to our speakers by listening to them attentively. We would like to hear from you. So please answer the evaluation form that we will be posting right after the discussion. E-certificates will be sent after. Lastly, and most importantly, we are here to learn. So let's have fun and always keep an open mind.
Thank you, Sedi. To give us the overview, please watch the short AVP followed by the presentation of the objectives of the webinar by Michael Vincent Carino.
When we are forced in situations that require us to adapt, to adjust, and to change, we tend to pause and resist. Humans, after all, are hardwired to resist change. When the coronavirus disease outbreak happened, everything had to stop. No travels, no business operations, schools were abruptly suspended, no religious activities, no gatherings, nothing. We were all forced to stay at home as we tried to live day by day, waiting for the lockdowns to end. But after more than a year, here we are, still subjected to community quarantines that rendered most businesses to operate below full capacity, while others had to completely shut down. Schools had to be conducted online or through modules, and a portion of our population were put on unemployment. While our frontliners continue to battle this disease that persists to snatch the lives of those around us. We, humans, are known for our resilience. We face adversities with smiles on our faces. But being prepared for the inevitable will allow us to be better equipped for what is to come, especially from those who are knowledgeable and experienced, as they will aid in our preparation. With this in mind, it is imperative that we establish why there is a need for transition and be able to identify what would be our roles as members of the society during this transition. Most importantly, we have to proactively accept the changes that we are currently experiencing because this is now our normal. And whether we like it or not, it is here to stay. Good afternoon. Our first objective is to describe the differences between the circumstance before this pandemic and our current situation. Our second objective is to identify the major factors in shifting to the new normal. The third will determine the importance of transition and why the new normal is here to stay. Fourth, will distinguish the different roles of each members of the society during this transition. And the last one will establish what the new normal looks like.
Thank you, Vincent. Now it is time for us to meet our panel. It is with great pride and pleasure that I present to you our resource speaker and panelist. First, our resource speaker, Atty. Roberto B. Mabalot Jr., graduated Bachelor of Science, major in Psychology in 2006 from St. Louis University in Baguio City. He also took education units for the licensure examination for teachers, and he became a licensed professional teacher in 2007. He earned 9 units of credit when he enrolled in the Master of Science in Psychology. He graduated Bachelor of Laws in 2011 from SLU Baguio, and he passed the bar examination on the same year. He completed Master of Laws in 2016 from San Beda College in Mendiola. He is currently studying graduate diploma in English and Hong Kong law in Hong Kong's University Space. Atty. Mabalot has worked as a student assistant and entrance examination proctor for SLU Baguio. He was a psychometrician for Moog Controls Corporation. He also served as an English teacher to foreign students. He was an intern for the Office of the Solicitor General in 2010. He worked as an online legal assistant for the law office of Dwayne Crooks in Miami, Florida, USA in 2012. He was an on-call legal consultant for Baguio Central University of the same year. He worked as an instructor for SLU, School of Accountancy and Business Management from 2012 to 2014. He also served as the director of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines, Baguio Benguet chapter. He was the board member of the People's Law Enforcement Board from 2012 to 2018. He is a lawyer of the Mabalot Law Office and managing partner of the law firm of the Mogan, Chan, and Mabalot. He is the Foreign Trade Officer of the Department of Trade and Industry, Foreign Trade Service Corps from 2018 up to present. He is currently the Vice Consul and Commercial Attaché of our country under the Philippine Trade and Investment Center in Hong Kong. He is a licensed attorney, licensed professional teacher, and licensed real estate broker. Let us all welcome Attorney Mabalot live from Hong Kong.
Hello, Christine. Thank you so much for that very wonderful introduction. Thank you.
Together with our resource speaker, we have three esteemed panelists who will share their expertise with us today. We have Attorney Clifford Chan, who studied Bachelor of Arts in Social Sciences in UP Baguio. He graduated Bachelor of Law from SLU Baguio. He subsequently graduated from the Master of Management program of UP Baguio. He is a candidate for graduation of Master of Laws. Attorney Chan worked as an instructor in SLU Baguio. He was Assistant Chief of the Investigation Division of the Department of Education. He worked as OIC Chief of the Legal Division of DepEd. He was of counsel of the law firm of the Mogan, Chan, and Mabalot. He is currently affiliated with the Civil Service Commission of the National Capital Region, working as Attorney 5. He is also a lecturer of the Institute of Management of UP Baguio. Let us all welcome Attorney Chan.
Sorry, thank you for having me for this seminar, and I'm very excited to be with you all today.
Thank you po. And next, we have Ms. Laureen Cristel Duculan, who graduated with a degree of Bachelor of Arts in Language and Literature and earned 12 units of credit from the Master of Management program of UP Baguio. She is a master trainer of the Training and Quality Advancement Team of Teleperformance Philippines. She has worked with Teleperformance since 2009. Talk about loyalty, right? Let's give it up for Ms. Duculan.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you for having me. Let's have a fun session today. Bye. Or hi, I should say.
Thank you. And for our last panelist, we have Mr. Kyle Dominic G. Taay. Mr. Taay graduated AB in Diplomacy and International Relations with specialization in East and Southeast Asian Studies from Ateneo de Manila University. He was a cohort of the Young Leader Pacific Forum CSIS in Honolulu, Hawaii, USA in 2019 and later served as a program intern. He was the Labor and Employment Officer 2 at the Department of Labor and Employment under the International Labor Affairs Bureau. He is currently a trade industry specialist at BTI, Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions. Please give a round of applause for Mr. Taay.
Hello, Christine. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you as well to the UP Baguio for having us today, and I look forward to today's discussions.
Thank you, sir. And now that we have met our resource speaker and panelist, I will give the floor to them so they can start the discussion on the new and next normal. Attorney Mabalot, the floor is yours.
Okay. So thank you so much again to each and everyone. Thank you for attending this webinar that was organized by UP Baguio with its various co-organizers. When I was actually when we were invited to have this to speak during this webinar, I really thought of inviting. I thought of these people who are speaking with right now, Attorney Clifford Chan, Ms. Laureen Duculan, and Mr. Kyle Dominic Taay, because these individuals are very they know what they, because of their wide experience and their backgrounds. I know that they'd be very much knowledgeable about some of the topics, and they'd be very happy to actually share their experiences to you guys. So, well, first and foremost, of course, whatever we say here are our own personal experiences and our own personal opinions. Okay, so now moving forward, so I actually, to help guide you in seeing the flow, I'll be sharing I'll be sharing a presentation. Just wait, please. Okay, so there. So, of course, so first and foremost, we have to talk about what changed in the economy. Of course, we have to look at the past first. In 2019, there were a lot of hope as to our economy. Actually, the individuals then were seeing the Philippines as a country that will be able to continuously and gradually increase. Actually, in 2019, the World Bank said that there was 5.8 growth in the Philippine economy, and they were seeing that 6.1% growth will happen in 2020, and thereafter, 2021 there will be 6.2% growth. But of course, we see now that everyone was taken aback by what happened with the pandemic spreading. So I think Attorney Clifford Chan, what is your opinion as to the economy? What changed?
Of course, from your very promising figures, I believe that our growth has been slashed by more than half. I think our growth estimates are now down to 2 to 3%. And even if you look at several issues such as the stock market, we've had it crash to a very low of 4,000 for the stock market index in general, for the PSEI stock market levels. Today, we now have it at around 6,500 average, but that's quite low from where we were off before. So a lot of people are truly struggling. I believe my other panelists have other things to add as well.
Yes, so Lorene, how about your perspective as to this?
So we all know we were greatly affected. I'm from the BPO industry, and so we were not as hit as, let's say, the service industry, but in our case, we felt that blow because we had to close down, or for a moment, we had to shut down a lot of our operations. And also, by the nature of the BPO industry, we are servicing companies from around the world, right? And so we had to shut down some of our operations because their companies also were hit so much. So let's say we have companies from Australia, companies from the United States, and companies in UK having to shut down their operations, and so we were greatly affected. And we felt that blow, but we eventually, of course, recovered simply because we had the means to let's see, work from home, for example, but not as I could say that we're other industries are not as lucky. And so we still feel that pain just by watching a lot of our counterparts out there.
Yeah, I actually just also want to share to you guys that as to my profession here abroad, my colleagues and I were the first individuals who were contacted by the international firms, of course, because we're, just to inform you guys, there's actually 33 of us. We're located in 28 cities in 22 countries. So these foreign firms contacted us immediately in telling us what do they need to do. Because of course, like what Lorene said, these companies located in the Philippines wanted to operate. They really had to operate even with the pandemic. So it was actually the Department of Trade and Industry who spearheaded and made sure that the operations would still continue, that the employees will be provided the proper transportation or housing near the location of their companies. Now, Kyle, what's your opinion about this?
Oh, so I think I'll answer this question more from a consumer perspective. There was definitely a prevailing air of uncertainty when lockdowns were first imposed in March 2020. You could tell everyone was thinking, so what happens next? And how long is this going to take? Entire industries came to a complete halt, especially the travel industry. But there were also certain types of businesses that actually thrived during lockdown. So since people couldn't eat out, I, for one, as someone who couldn't cook, literally relied on Food Panda and Grab Food for every meal every day. So I initially had some doubts about e-commerce platforms like Shopee and Lazada and even Gcash. And this comes from a perspective of someone who's Gen Z, who was born in 1997. But now I've come to fully embrace them because, I mean, what other alternatives do we have? If you visit any mall now, you'd notice a considerable number of stalls of closed shop. So all in all, I guess my answer to this question is that COVID-19 definitely changed the economic landscape entirely. And any business right now, should they want to survive, is necessitated to continuously innovate. We need to come up with new ways to do business, and digital is definitely at the forefront right now.
Yeah, that I totally agree with you, Kyle. Even here in Hong Kong, basically all companies, all retail, all restaurants, F&B companies have to digitize for them to keep afloat. But like what would be discussed later, there's certain differences, of course. So now, as to the next perspective, so what do you guys think changed in the environment itself? What's your opinion, Attorney Clifford?
For my opinion, I think in terms of the environment, initially, when in Manila, actually, you could see clear skies. You could really see from far away. But then again, it was a temporary measure. In fact, initially, environmentalists praised the lockdown in a way. But then again, of course, it was a temporary measure because we had to go back to the new normal, reviving our economy, right? People had to go back to work. So again, those clear skies are not as prevalent. But for a time, it did bring about a sense of awareness of what our carbon footprint is or how it could impact us and our environment. And I believe for a time, it enabled the people to actually be more aware in terms of their physical environment and their normal everyday activities impact that physical environment. I think my other co-panelists might have other ideas as well.
Yes. Actually, just to add some facts to our viewers, Attorney Chan right now is in Baguio. Lorene right now is in Manila, while Kyle is in Aklan. So, how about you, Lorene? What's your opinion about this?
Well, aside from apparently our carbon footprint really went down, but the heat is still killing us. But so from where I am,
agree.
But aside from that, I think it gave, and this is an opinion, of course. I'm not an environmentalist, right? But I think it gave a lot of our natural, like places like the beaches out there, the waterfronts, etc. Time to recover from human. I was going to say existence. So sort of like the way we closed down Boracay and then it recovered a little. I think a lot of our parks are the natural beauty of the country. I think they had time to recover. So I am hoping that when everything is back to normal, we don't ruin it exponentially because we're all gonna rush to these outer areas. But I think so far that's what I've been able to notice.
Yeah. So how about you, Kyle?
Okay, so I'm actually going to build up on what Lauren said earlier. I think I'll answer this question from the perspective of someone who went home to the province while my office in Manila is still in a work from home arrangement. I'm currently in my home province in Aklan, as previously mentioned by Bobby. And the island of Boracay is less than an hour from my house. I was able to visit the island sometime during this quarantine when Boracay was freely allowing entry to local Aklanons. There's definitely been considerable improvement in the infrastructure, in Boracay due to the lull in tourist activity, especially with the administration coming up with the task force for the rehabilitation of the island. The beach itself has definitely had some breathing room from the huge crowds. Although environment-wise, the lockdown has had some positive effects for Boracay's environment, I'm afraid I can't touch on this topic without talking about the economic side of it. So far, I have not seen official data released, but from an on-the-ground perspective, it would seem that half or even more than half of the normal number of establishments in Boracay have temporarily or permanently closed. Most banks on the island have even stopped operations as most of their clientele are the tourists. So it was definitely a sad sight, especially for someone who's from the province. Especially since prior to COVID, actually, as we all probably know, the island underwent a 6-month long lockdown to rehabilitate it. And when the island was finally ready to open up to the world again, COVID happened, and locals in the area who make a living off of the tourism through offering massages and tattoos, tourist activities are definitely struggling to meet ends right now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kyle, for that information. Just to share to you guys also, actually here in Hong Kong right now, in the promenade area in Tsim Sha Tsui, there's lesser people there. Recently I was talking to a Hong Konger, and basically this Hong Konger friend of mine said that it's only now of recent that he has been in that area again, because for the longest time it was so crowded. There were so many mainland Chinese tourists who were there, but now it's just like in the Philippines. It's the skies are good, like the air is breathable. So these are some of the changes that we actually notice in our environment. And just like what Kyle said, there are a lot of perspectives wherein we could look into this matter, because in a conference yesterday that I attended, wherein the Secretary of Labor and Welfare and the Secretary of Labor and Welfare and other officials of the Hong Kong government were present to speak. They actually shared the fact that they already are expecting that the tourism industry in Hong Kong might not even go back to how it was before. So they're starting to look into other avenues or other sectors for them to, to improve in, like biopharmaceutical, just to share some details to you guys. Now, moving forward, what changed in the taste of the Filipinos? What do you think, Cliff?
For me, I think because taste is what matter, right? But in general, in terms of, like Kyle mentioned earlier, a lot of Filipinos opted to go to online orders, of course, and a lot, of course, opted to cook from home as well. So it's a mix, actually. It's a healthy mix. Although some people opted towards ordering online via Food Panda, a lot also opted through home deliveries, because the industry, what COVID-19 actually allowed groceries to be delivered to the homes. It popularized it more often compared to before, because we had it from Pure Gold, etc. But now it's more prevalent. We also had barangay, how do you say this, mobile markets, which were actually popularized by LGUs and barangays. So it depends on the area, but I think in general, a lot of people opted to go online and order fast food. But also at the same time, a lot of people tried to go for vegetable deliveries online. But generally, I think that's my thought about that.
Okay. How about you, Lorene?
So I'm hoping I'm answering this question also right. So aside from food in general, I think we opened a lot of doors into our taste online. So let's say the music industry, the even what we consume. So Netflix and chill became an even bigger thing now. We have we like things that are more instant now. Something that we can get immediately. So I think that's how our tastes have changed, and we I'm not sure if people can relate, but apparently like influencers are also a big deal now. And we're so connected to what's going on in other countries, etc. But I think that circled around that need to connect with people, even if we're not physically around, and of course how technology came in here, and we needed to lean on technology because of the pandemic. So that's what I have observed.
Yeah. So how about you, Kyle? What's your take on this?
Okay, so I think in terms of food, everyone's palate underwent several evolutions from various trends emerging during the lockdown. There was Dalgona coffee, if you guys are familiar with that, ube pandesal, sourdough bread, and so many other fads popularized by social media. As someone in the threshold of being Gen Z and early millennial, can definitely say platforms like TikTok, Gcash, Shopee, and Lazada have firmly cemented themselves in the Filipino psyche during this lockdown. Now, I mean, we do our shopping for gift items and even food digitally these days. We see numerous Instagram accounts popping up, which range from selling sushi bakes, pre-loved clothes, shoes, and almost any product fit for a digitally inclined consumer. This trend, I believe, is definitely not going away anytime soon because of its convenience and its appeal to a lot of Filipinos who are almost permanently glued to their phone these days. I'm one of those people, by the way. So that's my take on the matter.
Yeah, I think one thing that I also kind of noticed was the fact that more people are keen on purchasing and supporting their kapitbahays, like the businesses in the corner, the food in the corner. So I think that on a positive note, that's one thing that as to the taste of Filipinos, they're more supporting local brands, which is I'm happy about, to be honest about it. Now moving forward, so what do you think have changed in the expectations of people, Cliff?
For expectations, I think for a lot of people, it's been lowered for large degree because honestly, COVID necessitated that lowering of expectations. Although I don't have official statistics yet, but we know traditionally that Filipinos are one of the most hopeful around, right? Because we see it every new year that every year we have statistics of how Filipinos remain hopeful, of how they envision a better year ahead. I still think that Filipinos are fueled by hope, of course. And however, I think that this hope has been tempered somewhat. Expectations are lowered somewhat because we're always told through social media that it's okay not to be as productive. It's okay not to be as workaholics as we are used to be because times have changed. And honestly, we also owe it to ourselves to have a break sometimes. So expectations in terms of our productivity should be lowered, in terms of our performance have been lowered. And naturally, in terms of our economic outlook, it has also lowered somewhat because it's a natural consequence of the reduction in our GDP, in our GNP. So naturally, our expectations for ourselves in terms of how we would perform has shifted from growth somewhat to survival at this point in time. And unfortunately, that is the side effect of the pandemic thus far.
Yeah. How about you, Lorene? What do you think?
Yes, well, I totally agree. But just maybe to add on to that, I think as far as expectations are concerned, I think we all had huge expectations or hopeful expectations of everybody around us. Let's say from all the authority figures, our companies, our leaders, our government, we all had all that expectations. And I think and this is once again my personal opinion, what changed was that I think that started to go inwards. Like instead of expecting so much, let's say from the government, we start this thing, the community pantry started and say, what can I do to help? What can we do as a group to help? And so it became expectations for, instead of expectations from everybody else, it became expectations from ourselves. And so on, and also on one hand, I could say that this is coming from like a like a position of privilege where you have something to give, right? Or you are in a position to give a little bit more, let's say even if you don't have the job or you can keep your job during the pandemic, and you have something to give. But if there are a lot of coverage, news coverage on people who, even if they had so little to give, they still had an effort or made an effort to do so. So I think in general, the expectations became, to summarize, inward versus outward in a way. So that's it.
Yeah, I loved how you put it, Lorraine, actually. It's more of us expecting more from our own self, right? So yeah. How about you, Kyle?
Yeah, so this actually builds on Cliff's and Lorraine's perspectives on the matter. I'm definitely one of the people who have had to grapple with this new pace COVID imposed on all of us. I'm sure I'm not the only one with travel plans that were abruptly stopped by the pandemic. Even outside of travel, I mean, I've had to readjust my expectations career-wise, academic-wise, and even in terms of major life milestones. Although I do try to do things towards my goals in this remote setup, it's definitely not as effective as I would like it to be. For now, I think it's building up on what Cliff said earlier. I think it's best not to pressure ourselves to be out there aggressively chasing after our life goals. It's definitely hard to do so with all the social distancing protocols in place right now, all the travel bans, and even in an uncertain business environment. So I hope this gives some people reassurance that during these unprecedented times, survival and being healthy is enough. I, for one, definitely need assurance as well.
Yeah, I actually agree with Kyle too, because uh, they know how hard worker I am. I'm a multitasker and I really try my best to do a lot, that sometimes I end up stressing out myself. So some of the people I know would tell me that, you're doing okay. Try to relax. There is a pandemic going on, so I'm just sharing that to tell you guys that yeah, it is okay to relax and not do not stress yourself too much. Now, of course, what are the considerations during the transition to the new normal, like health wise? What do you think, Cliff?
Of course, first and foremost, during this time, it's especially important for us to be physically healthy, because we know that at this point in time, physical health will have a significant tie back to our finances. For this time where a lot of people are undergoing hospitalization and other treatments, a trip to the hospital will cost you possibly your life savings or millions or hundreds of thousands pesos. It can set you back significantly. So it's more important now than ever to be physically healthy, to ensure that we are safe and that our well-being is intact. Apart from that, of course, our mental well-being is also important. I think now more than ever, we have to forgive ourselves if we are unable to work at the same capacity as we were before. Although that is a hard lesson sometimes for all of us, but we have to accept it, I think. Maybe other panelists might have something to say about that.
What do you think, Lorraine?
Well, yeah, totally. Physical health. I think I'm seeing extremes right now. Some people are like became super healthy. They lost a lot of weight. They're indoors, and so it's like, look at my new body right now. And then there's the other normal mortal people like me, who, because we are stuck at home, we don't have as much chances or drive to be physically healthy. And so I think we are looking at such a dichotomy that we really have to make room for or find ways to balance that out. So that's physical health. But that is intensely also related to mental health. I think, like we said earlier, it's become such a big deal right now because we are all in such a stressful environment. There's that constant fear that I might die, or worse, there's a constant fear I might starve. My family might starve. Where am I going to get money for my next meal, etc.? Or am I doing enough? Am I going to be able to keep my job? So a lot of these concerns are very valid, and So mental health care used to take like a backseat to physical health, but I think nowadays it has to get as much attention, and we have to be able to give ourselves room to also exercise mental health care. How do I say be healthy in mental health in the mental health care way. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I have not. I think caffeine has run its course already, but I'll try to hold on. That's it.
Yeah, how about you, Kyle? What's your take on this?
Yeah, so I'll just build up on Lorraine's take on mental health. Just to share with you guys what it was like to enter a new workplace right in the middle of an uncertain transition when lockdowns were first imposed. To provide context, I entered DTI in March, so I was only able to report to the office physically for 2 weeks, and then the lockdown happened. So it was definitely not good for my mental well-being. I'm generally an anxious person, to be honest about it, constantly thinking of scenarios on what could go wrong. In entering a new workplace, there are definitely anxieties involved, like if you'll be fit for the job, if you'll enjoy the work, if you have agreeable colleagues, and if it was the right move to actually leave your previous job in the first place. And this was definitely exacerbated by the lockdown for me. To put it simply, it was very hard to find and establish my footing, especially when your own office is management and virtually all businesses, organizations, and every other collective entity were also feeling their way into the dark on how to move forward, especially with well with an uncertain policies with regard to lockdowns at the start. So uh, thankfully I have helpful and accommodating superiors and colleagues in my office in DTI who guided me through it all, and I'm currently with my agency for 1 year and 3 months now, and I don't regret making the move one bit.
Yeah. So actually, I also want to share the fact that I also just moved here in Hong Kong last May 1, 2020. So I totally agree with what Kyle just said, that it's a bit hard, transitioning to like going to a new place or a new job, and like it affects you mentally, physically, psychologically, spiritually. Like right now, I think with the new normal, people are more keen on their faith, like they're a bit more closer to who, what, or it that they believe in. I it's because some all of us have to believe in something, I guess, and um, like health wise, on my end, because of what happened right now, like I'm making sure that I do 10,000 steps every day. I do yoga every day. Actually last year I tried being vegetarian. So I think like everyone is more health conscious. And actually like statistics have shown that people are like here in Hong Kong, like people are more open on doing 1 day vegetarian, while there's an increase as to people who are actually going vegetarian from 4% to 9%. Those statistics would show that people are more health conscious, like what I was saying earlier. Now, as to finances, what do you think, Clifford?
Oh, this is a very difficult for a lot of people. Even now, I have so many people I'm aware of who have lost their jobs. And despite the transition to the new normal, they still cannot work because their industry is still severely affected. So they've had to struggle to find other ways to make ends meet. And when your regular source of income has been compromised, this is a very stressful and an anxious situation, anxiety inducing situation. So for a lot of people, I think it's very difficult for them to come up with the finances to actually even survive. Uh, so I'm thankful that, of course, for myself, that I've still been gainfully employed, of course, during this time. A lot of people try to work and they have to, but unfortunately, in order to work, sometimes they have to learn new skill sets, which require finances. So it's a bit of a bind for them. But a lot of people have been extremely hard up in terms of their financial aspects. And I think this is undeniable by most. A lot of people rely on community pantries and ayuda just to survive, but sometimes it's not nearly enough to be comfortable. And it's also hurtful for the pride of the average person to have to rely on dole outs to survive. So it's tough actually.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Lorraine?
Well, coming from people who were able to keep their jobs, we also had to adjust to a lot of things because, in a way, our company to keep afloat had to cut down, let's say, extra expenses. So we had to take a hard look at what expenses can we cut off for now, and then just resume somewhere down the road. Let's say we had our like incentives or bonuses put on hold, just for the greater good. Like, okay, we'd rather keep everybody and then pause on, let's say, these incentives than to have to let people go just to pay these incentives. As a company, the company also talked to us and said, hey, we know we do paid time offs, right? And so if you accumulate enough paid time off, and that's encashable somewhere down the road. But they encouraged us to take it because, let's say, number one, mental health care, that was the press release. But more than that, it was also a way to manage those extra expenses that we are trying to cut down. So from a business that was privately owned, I think that's how we looked at our finances, those were just some of the steps that we took to like tighten the belt a little, and to keep afloat. Personally, I think a lot of people took a hard look at how helpless we are without our job, because I think most of us, a normal person would be complacent. I'm employed, I'm gainfully employed, I'm gonna keep this forever. And so that's the mindset going in. But then now, because of the pandemic, we started to think, oh my gosh, maybe I should invest. Maybe I should have more than savings. Maybe I should have insurance. Maybe I should have a business, etc. So I think for those who are able, they started to look into those things during the pandemic. And so in a way, that's a great benefit to have. So you have people who are taking interest in other ways to earn income versus just living paycheck to paycheck, etc. But once again, those are coming from people who are able. So if on a third level, for those who are not able to, I think not just for these people who can't, like the jeepney drivers, right? My heart goes out to them because they can't earn as much as they did before to make that living. It made us look into, and it's an ugly picture to look at, but it made us look into how much really does it take to survive in this world. Like, what's the minimum amount you need to survive? How much money should you earn to survive daily? I mean, a lot of people raise their eyebrows at that 10K ayuda request, right? But then or 8K or etc. But then if you have a family of 8, you do the math, etc. So I think in a way that we also have to confront that and to look at how much really does it take to survive in this world, and are we able to provide that sort of income to the people of our country? So that's me.
Yeah. And just to add on what Lorraine just said, a lot of companies right now, of course, had to cut some spending on some things that they would have spent on had there been no pandemic. Because of course, like just to go to the office, they have to pay for the testing of their employees too. There are a lot of considerations, just like what I said also earlier, that transportation is also being provided by some companies. Billeting is provided by companies, which like it should be near the company itself. So how about you, Kyle? What's your take as to finances?
Yeah, from an individual perspective, on my end, financial health is definitely a prime factor I consider these days before making any major move. This new normal makes me exercise caution in any decision I make. Finances are a big consideration why I am not like most of my generation, I guess, who find it easy to job hop. I tend to be more cautious, especially since my work arrangement right now is pretty advantageous since I get to work from the comforts of my home province. Although as a young adult who is just starting out, I'm thankful that my family is there as a social security net, that even if I go out of work, I don't have to worry about survival for the most part. But as I think mentioned earlier, most middle class Filipinos these days are just one severe hospitalization away from going bankrupt. So in these uncertain new normal, I urge everyone to please exercise caution, especially during this public health crisis where one leisurely trip could mean infecting yourself and your loved ones and draining your finances. In the next normal, I certainly hope we can be more lax about this, but I'm afraid this is the grim reality we're all facing right now.
Yeah, I actually agree with Kyle. I think before this, Kyle, Cliff, and Lorraine and I were talking, and I was telling them that I'm sure that a lot of people, since they're like work from home, have savings. So they should, like what Kyle was saying earlier. These people who are fortunate to have work must be very careful with their finances because because these are uncertain times and we don't know what will come up next, basically. Now, of course, another consideration that we have would be our family and friends during this transition to the new normal. So how has your relationship with your family and friends been, Cliff?
Well, it's been a bit more difficult because previously I used to regularly travel, right? Like Kyle, actually, I only just recently shifted towards a new workplace. And of course, having to transfer brings up a lot of anxieties and difficulties, right? Of course, you're used to a previous workplace, you have your work friends there. And then I also moved a physical location, like you, Asa. So it's also difficult. So because you're moving into a new environment, you don't know as many people. So it's a bit more difficult. And then you don't get to travel as often. So in my case, I can't go back home to Baguio really very often, or similar to the past where you can just go on, take a trip overnight, and you're in Baguio after a few hours. But now bus times are quite limited, so it's quite difficult. And I imagine even though we have Zoom, it's not the same as being with the people who you're with um, physically or nearby. It's still a different environment. And I think even though we have the benefits of technology to tide us over, I think there is still a substantial difference, and it still has a long-term, potentially negative effect on your mental well-being when you are not able to be with your family and friends for an extended period of time. And I think that is something which adversely affects all of us. But it's only thanks to technology that we are able to actually be with family and friends virtually, even if not physically. That's my point for now.
Yeah. How about you, Lorraine? How has it been with your family and friends?
So as an extrovert, the lockdown was very difficult for me because I did enjoy hanging out with my friends and of course my colleagues. But now we're renegated to the screen. But then something that happened was that need to reconnect or that need to connect with people sort of grew. And the people that I would normally like have calls with, now we have I think we have a more consistent call time now. So something that I'm very happy about and something personal that I'd like to share with the group is that how my grandmother actually figured out Messenger. So we taught her Facebook. Yeah, we taught her Facebook. We taught her Messenger so that we could have a family call every Sunday because we couldn't meet anymore. And we're a close knit family, and so we used to meet all the time. And then of course we're stuck here. I can't go up to Baguio. My lola's in Alamino. She can't travel. She's a senior citizen, and also there's that fear in us that although maybe sometime we can travel, what if we're bringing something to her, right? And so we were scared for her and for everyone in our family, so we decided to just play it safe. But then we have Sundays with our grandmother, and so she now joins Zoom, or not Zoom, Facebook Messenger calls. So we have that conversation with her weekly, whereas before probably come by like once a month, or once in a quarter and stay for a week, etc. Now it's like every Sunday we check her out, like what's going on, Lola. And so that, I think that's a great thing that happened during the pandemic. That although on one hand we experience a lot of pain because of, let's say, like death in the family or death with friends that you can't support, right? It's not like before when you can go physically to the wake and just be there for them. Now it's an online wake, and or it's just words that you can send over. But I think at least it's painful, but we find ways. And yeah, we just hold on to what we have for now, which is technology and all these online platforms that we are very blessed to have now.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lorraine. How about you, Kyle? What do you think?
So family and friends are definitely the bedrock during these uncertain times that keep me sane. I think it's important to stay connected with the people who support us. A message from a friend, even just to catch up or to let you know that they were thinking about you, could help so much, especially when you feel like there are these moments when you are fighting your battles alone. It's really important to remember that there are these people with you who you can turn to when the world seems to be too much. During these new normal times, I actually deeply appreciate all those random ayuda from no matter how big or small from friends and family, just to show appreciation. And I myself also find myself fulfilled when I do the similar gestures for people I value.
Yeah, actually, I also want to share to you guys that being far away from home, basically, being here in Hong Kong, of course, our family would constantly have like chats or video calls. We're a bit more open to each other in like talking about anything under the sun, even though these like topics are so minute or unimportant. We get to even talk about that now. And I agree with the other speakers that, I would have loved to on my end go home to the Philippines, but of I have been here for more than a year because of that fear that I don't want to bring in any sickness to my family, or the other way around. I don't want to bring in sickness here, even though I'm already vaccinated. Fortunately, I that can still happen, and I have this fear that I'd be like a super spreader, which I don't want to have on my function. So, it's good with the technology right now that we are able to talk through Zoom, Messenger, and all these other platforms. Actually, there's so many platforms right now that some I like in a week I find out a new one because that's what some businesses would prefer to use. So, I think that as a family and friends, we have been more connected, much more connected. And that's one positive thing about this transition to the new normal. So as to the next topic, so we're going to discuss the importance of the transition as to the life of the government, life of the business, life of the employer, and life of the employee, and life of everyone. So I'll just stop to share the screen so that we can discuss more and basically see each other. So Attorney Chan, as to the life of the government, how has it been?
It's a mixed bag. So in general, the Civil Service Commission promulgated a memorandum circular which allowed different work modalities for different agencies. So for some agencies like Kyle, they have a more prevalent work from home work arrangement. Other agencies opted for compressed work weeks. It's a mixed bag because it depends on the government agency. But I think for a lot of government employees, they're very thankful that they have work, but at the same time apprehensive that they are exposed to potentially the virus, of course, because of work, if they are required to report to the office premises. It's been difficult actually because much like the private environment, I would guess, government has had to how do they say this, transform its operations into a digital environment. But unlike the private business environment, there are more constraints for transformation of infrastructure and digital technology in the government. There's necessity for procurement, it's not as fast. There is a need for budgeting for these aspects. But of course, the budget is depleted because of the need to finance Bayanihan Act 1 and 2. So it's a bit more difficult on the part of the government. I'd say that although there are genuine efforts always to try and adapt to the situation, because the new normal is not, it hasn't really set in yet. We are always in transition at this point in time. We don't know when exactly things will settle. Even today, yes, the other day we just shifted from ECQ to GCQ for a lot of communities. It's always ever changing at this point in time. And no country is really safe. Look at India. They declared victory over COVID-19 just a few months ago. Now, numbers in India are extremely high. Now, I just posted here some notable issuances for government employees, if you'd like. So we actually have Civil Service Commission Memorandum Circular 3. So these are things that you might want to check out if you'd like to see how life has been for the government employee, because we are generally guided by these issuances. So what we have are guidelines on absences for government officials and employees during community quarantine, COVID-19 pandemic, work arrangements, alternative work arrangements. We have those actually. So such as work from home arrangement, staggered working hours, of course, compressed work weeks. So these are different options that we may avail of, but it depends on the head of the agency on what type of work arrangement they would like. But in general, it's also been different for government employees. Difficult also sometimes to adapt because our net connection in the Philippines is not really stable. We know that it has been remarked as one of the slowest internet speeds of the world, right? Second lowest, if I remember correctly. But we try to get by with what we have, actually.
Yeah, and of course, I also want to add the fact that one thing, one importance of the government right now is the fact that, of course, it's doing a lot of improvement in its infrastructure, its roads, the internet connection. If some of you might not know, last year, Facebook, because the fiber optics of Facebook is passing through the Philippines. That's why there's an improvement in our internet connection in the Philippines. That's one good thing that has been done. And another thing is the fact that, of course, as to the provinces, the government has recognized the fact that basically the provinces and its students in the provinces would need internet. So they have been building up this free internet connection in some spots in the provinces. Of course, I know that as to its rollout, it's taking some time, but there are improvements. How about you, Lorene? How's the life in the business, basically in the private sector?
Sure. So on our end, I think we had to take a lot into consideration in that for one, we start with how we relaxed our regulations as far as attendance is concerned, because we from a company that really places high importance on attendance, because you have to be there. Every minute is billed, right? Nowadays, we had to relax that in view of the pandemic, the lack of the lack of transportation, and all those things. We also, I think, as a company, we were forced into looking into the work from home setup, which was unimaginable before the pandemic. Not because the technology was not there, but because of the security risk it takes. I mean, we are catering to clients out clients outside the country, we are privy to certain information that well, obviously are private, and so that was a struggle. Like, is this account something we can do in work from home? We had to get the clients to go ahead, etc. So that was also something that we looked into. It was a struggle for a moment, but I think we got our groove on already. We had we have a system for that already, and I think as an employee, one of the things that we are now facing is that need for productivity, right? Because you work from home, although you don't have your supervisor breathing down your neck anymore, they can see you there. There seems to be an increased expectation of work output, right? Like how like since you're there and I think it's also self-expectation sometimes. Like, anyway, I'm just at home. I might as well do a little more, etc. Or it can sometimes be difficult to draw that line between I'm at work now and I'm at home now, which used to be so easy because you had to travel, and so in your mind mentally you could say that, okay, I'm off work right now, and then if somebody asks you for something like, hey, can you send over that file, you could say, okay, I'm out of the office. But that's changed now with the advent of being online, or the online connection here, because instead of you couldn't say that, oh, I can't send it anymore because I'm out of the office. There's the PC's right there. You can't just say that, oh, I shut down the PC already, etc. So I think for a while that was also a struggle. Actually, I think now for several people it still is. That need, or that need to be constantly connected and reachable. But that's something that we're looking into now, and I think the campaign for at least our company is to balance the work-life environment, and so we will release several movements and reminders to the leadership to address that very issue. But I think a lot of people would also share that, like, it's hard to realize that I'm off work now, in comparison to the way it was before. So there you go.
Yeah. Actually, I just want to share one fact to you guys that actually business name registration in the Department of Trade and Industry online actually skyrocketed last year. There has been 86,726 business names, registered from April to December only, as compared to 1,848 business names registered for online businesses as of March 2020. So I think, like, on the private sector, like a lot of people have been, more innovative, more risk takers into doing business, which is quite good. And that's one good thing that I think this pandemic has also brought into the private sector. How about you, Kyle? What's your take as to the life of the employee and the employee right now, an employee? Yeah.
Bobby, I'm so sorry. My internet's breaking up right now, and I didn't really catch the question.
Yeah.
My audio okay?
So how's your life as an employee right now? Can you share something?
Oh, okay. So I'd like to touch on what my agency is doing right now. So I believe I speak for the whole government service when I say that service to the Filipino people is always number one. There's no room for lax service in a time when Filipinos, stakeholders, entire industries, and every citizen needs it the most. So on the part of my office in DTI, the Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, as export promotion arm of the department, we have been trying to gradually evolve as these new normal times emerge. SciTime, my office, is in the industry of trade fairs and export promotions. So prior to COVID, the lifeblood of our agency really was organizing trade fair events and participations to trade fairs abroad. And I can definitely say that we are one of those fields that was completely upended by COVID. But now we're finding our footing and adjusting to digital events and even big innovations like an actual digital exhibition where booths of participating exhibitor companies appear on your screen as a digital booth, which you can click and you can find information on their products and even be able to schedule a virtual meeting with their company representatives. To give more context on what my unit does in SITEM specifically, I'm in the division which is in charge of promoting Filipino food exports abroad. Just recently, we concluded several projects for um, participations in overseas trade fairs despite COVID restrictions. So recently, we had the China International Import Expo, which was in Shanghai, China. Our participation was, for the first time, it was hybrid, wherein there was an actual delegation in the trade floor in Shanghai. And on our part, as the organizers of the participation in SciTime, we were manning the whole participation remotely from Manila. So after that, early this 2021, we had BioFact, which is a trade show in Germany. That show was completely digital, and it cemented it became a benchmark in which how we conduct digital fair participation these days. So another one was Gulf Food in the Middle East, which promotes Philippine halal products to the Middle East market, and this one was hybrid as well. And an ongoing project right now, which I'm currently heading, is Foodex Japan in Chiba, Japan. It's an online participation, which started in March 2 and will span until October. And we're hoping to really promote our Philippine food products to the Chinese market. So these are definitely odd times, but I am certain every single government agency right now in their own way is adjusting to better serve the Filipino people in this new normal.
Yeah, actually, just like what Kyle was sharing to you guys, like they basically their group is the basically is the one that goes and travels abroad and mans like the booths. That was before, but of course, right now, as a as an employee, like you really have to adjust. You have to. They're all doing it online. It's all hybrid. So my colleagues in Guangzhou, for example, are the ones like looking over the booths there, but online, like the group of Kyle is supervising or guiding or assisting. So these changes, we really have to adjust because, of course, one, if we're not going to adjust, of course, like the business will die, whether it be in the private sector. So, I know for a fact that a lot of us might complain on why, like, there are a lot of bad things caused by the going online part of the job, but we really have to do it, and as to up to when it will continue on, we actually don't know. So what Attorney Cliff, like as a normal person, like as a common tao, not as related to work itself, like how's your life in general right now?
Uh, it's still, I think, difficult because, as was mentioned by my colleague here, work can be difficult in the sense that you don't know when it begins, when it stops. Although we are an office that we do actually report physically to the office premises at this point in time. You have anxieties because you have to balance out how much work you're rendering, and what is the extent of what the extent that you have to be on call for work purposes, because sometimes that's a difficult balance to strike, especially when we have online work. It's also difficult because for me, I used to also travel a lot. So, and I'm used to distressing through various means, such as going to the gym. and it's as it happens, these are not readily available today. So the traditional means of me going to the gym or distressing out, that's not readily available, and it's not exactly feasible at this point in time. So we have to find different ways to cope, I think, for all of us. And especially now, for me, for example, that I am distance generally from my friends and family, it's also difficult. I think for me, for example, if I live alone most of the time, it can be difficult for an extended period of time. So I think um, for me, especially, mental health is something that we should give consideration in order to survive this pandemic at this point in time. And also, it's difficult for me to actually think about different aspects. As Noreen mentioned earlier, sometimes we try to think of different things apart from active earning because for me, more than ever, it's time to consider passive income streams. As I did mention that it's okay just to survive, but this point in time, you also think about what if this happens again? Do we have an emergency fund which is sufficient if ever you get laid off? So it's more important than now to be financially aware and financially literate. So we have to think about the emergency fund, build it up, and then think about passive income streams and insurance, such as health insurance, so that you are not adversely affected in the future. These are things that I give attention to, but sometimes the stress and the anxiety of our current situation gets in the way. But we have no choice but to move forward. And that's also a mindset that I try to remind myself that we just have to pick ourselves up and move forward, because otherwise we're not going to go anywhere. But at the same time, we have to forgive ourselves. So it's a difficult balance to strike, but I always try to pick myself up despite the difficulties that we have in life. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cliff. How about you, Lorraine? Do you have anything to share as to this?
Yeah, sure. I think it's more being more conscious of your mental health more than anything for me. I Let me just share a little bit of like a meme I saw online. How there's this husband and he was going through this. He was going through his phone, right, reading through the news, and the wife says, "What's wrong with you? How come your face just it darkened so much?" And he's like, "Because of all the news I'm receiving." And so they called it, and they stopped doing it. They called it doom surfing, where you go online and then you read the bad news, and then as you scroll down, there's another bad news, and so it's like you're doom surfing.
Wow.
You're reading into a lot of bad things, right? Really nowadays, it's like there's something happening every month, and so it's so easy to be demotivated by that. It's so easy to feel so helpless, so small, because you're unable to do anything about all of those things, and it that can also add to your stress. And so what we did as my friends and I and my family and I, we try to, of course, cheer each other up. And so we decided, and we talked about it also, and it came down to the circle of control. How we only stress about the things that are something that we can influence directly, and then leave everything else to God, basically. And so you have to realize that if you have to guard your mental health and avoid doom surfing, please do so. Or if that also means you're going to do Netflix instead of let's say exercising, or of reading a book about improving yourself, etc. Whatever floats your boat, whatever helps you calm down and detoxify from all these sad and bad things in life, take it. Don't be unapologetic about what you need to do to calm yourself down and relax, because we are in a heightened sense of stress right now, and so you're just going to have to cut yourself some slack and give yourself time to relax. So that's what we've been doing. That's what we've been advising, and also at work, it's something that I'm very happy about, that our company also recognizes the impact of mental health, and so they send us all these podcasts, they send us into these meetings, or in these webinars that help us figure out what's going on with ourselves, and of course ways to better handle the stress. So that's it. So I hope you picked up something fun aside from doom surfing.
That's actually so nice. Basically, positivity, guys. We really have to be positive during this time. So, how about you, Kyle? Can you share something about this?
Sure. So, in a personal capacity, as much as possible, I'm still trying to limit going out unless necessary. But I, for one, have had my fair share of lockdown fatigue. There were times when I would go out for a leisurely activity because I could literally not take any more being confined in my own room or like in the house. So, although like these activities come in the form of something safe, like dining in a restaurant where we would strictly follow health protocols, there's always definitely going to be the worry at the back of your mind that you still somehow get infected despite strictly following these said protocols. So I encourage everyone to remain vigilant, especially since the threat is not yet fully curbed, and if the option is already available to you to get vaccinated against COVID. So as a citizen, I truly hope we collectively overcome this hurdle soon. And I am excited for what the next and hopefully better normal can bring.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kyle. And I will actually transition to the next topic from what Kyle talked about. Basically, now we're going to discuss the roles in the transition. Of course, we have our government right now is doing as much as it can, basically, to impose these policies, to bring out regulations, to adjust immediately to what's happening around us. Just to share to you guys, even here in Hong Kong, you know what? Like if there is an uptick of like COVID cases in the past, because we actually last October last year it was like the third wave. So like if there's an uptick like today, they will meet evening to make sure that new policies will be brought out. Same way with what's happening in the Philippines. I know that a lot of us are a bit weary, are complaining and all that, but you know the government can only do so much as to this. And I think that like what Attorney Chan was sharing earlier, the people in the Civil Service Commission on their end has been bringing out all these policies also to apply to help the civil servants in doing their jobs basically. Other than that, Cliff, what else can you share about what the government is doing?
Yes, of course. Personally, I think that the government agencies, this whatever agency it is trying to cope in its own way. First and foremost, of course, I related the civil service issuances because that's something that I'm a bit more familiar with. But in general, we have had policies on how to treat absences due to COVID-19, quarantine, and absences related to restricted travel. I think those are issues that detain. Of course, then we have issuances related to work arrangements that can be undertaken during the COVID-19 pandemic. We have the mental health programs in place. Wait, I'm sorry. Of course, the Congress has passed Bayanihan Act 1 and 2, which is meant to assist in the social amelioration efforts of the government. We also have from different agencies, such as, for example, for the Department of Education, I know that the Learning Continuity Plan was passed, and this talks about the different learning modalities that can be employed for the basic education sector. So you have face-to-face learning, blended learning, TV learning, online learning. It depends on the region, of course, because COVID-19 doesn't hit all places in the same way. There are places which are more severely affected than others. And of course, we have to take consideration over the fact that we are an archipelago. So transmission of the virus, if contained properly, won't be as easily spread across different islands and archipelagos because we are an archipelago, right? So apart from that, I think the government is constantly trying to work on improving its efforts in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic. It's difficult, to be honest, of course, because this is something new. And even more developed countries, first world countries, etc., or developed nations rather, sorry, to be politically correct, have not been as successful in their efforts to combat COVID-19. It is only now that they are actually being more able and equipped to combat COVID-19. So I think what we are trying is to establish a pattern of safety. Of course, we have a lot of critics who will always address the inability of the government, but I think the government is also trying its best at this point in time. Yes, it's true that maybe we have never faced the decline that would lead us to the presumption that the first wave has actually ended, because we've never really stopped to a point of other nations, such as New Zealand, where they declared 0 COVID-19 cases. Here, it's just been plateaued, and then it's risen sharply. Then again, it's on a steady decline again today. But because of how COVID-19 is, there are new mutations as well. And these new strains are actually more severe in terms of infection rate. It's difficult to account for everything, but I think the government is trying its best to cope in the best way that it can. But that's, I think, something that we can recognize at the very least. Despite individual failings that we may have, or collective failings as institutions, there is really a genuine effort, I can say, to address the COVID-19 and its various effects on the nation and on us as individuals.
I agree. How about you, Kyle? Being in the government, what can you share? What other things like the office that you're in is doing?
So thank you, Bobby. So I think I actually previously touched on this early on in the discussion, but my office within the DTI, the Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, or CITEM, has been incredibly busy during this transition period. We are an agency that is mandated to provide services to the country's micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, by helping them become competitive in the global export market. We had to navigate new ways in providing our services, which were mainly the organization of trade fairs domestically and participations in trade fairs organized by other international bodies, especially now where digital assets are yung labanan po to be attractive to buyers in online platforms. We've been helping Philippine companies upgrade their content, their digital presences in the World Wide Web, especially on commerce platforms and social media. Outside of those digital efforts, CITEM has also been persevering and sending Philippine delegations to overseas trade fairs in some shape or form. Just recently, I was project officer for the China International Fair for Investment and Trade, or CIFIT, in Guangzhou, China, which is a trade fair for investments. Our participating companies included those in the real estate industry like MegaWorld and even banks like BDO, together with investment promotion agencies of the country like the Clark Development Council, or CDC, and the PESA, or the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, which are agencies mandated to promote investment opportunities in the country. So outside of that, as I previously touched on, my specific unit in CITEM focuses on food. So I urge everyone, if there is anyone in the audience right now who is an owner or a decision maker of an MSME, or even an employee of such a business that wants to export food and food products abroad, to check out what services DTI CITEM may offer to your business to meet its business goals, especially in terms of exports to specific markets. Aside from food, we also have agency initiatives in the furniture, fashion, crafts, creatives, and sustainability industries, and I highly encourage everyone to check out what CITEM may offer.
Yeah, I want to emphasize what Kyle said. You know, as to our MSMEs in Baguio City or anywhere in the Philippines, you know, you must have the world as a target, because you can also sell our Filipino products out there. And if you do, you know, just always believe in the products that you have. Just to share one, basically my work here in Hong Kong and Macau is I assist foreign investors who would like to do business in the Philippines And I also assist exporters from the Philippines to bring in their products here in Hong Kong and Macau. And basically, because Hong Kong is a re-export country, so most of the products here are also eventually exported to mainland China or Europe and US and the whole world. So just to share to you, one of the things that we have been doing, even with this pandemic, there has been a lot of investments coming in the Philippines. So we need that definitely, because our Filipinos, our kababayans need the work. We have also, of recent, I've been able to assist a Filipino exporter to bring in pineapples, papaya, avocado, and mangoes here in Hong Kong. Our farmers greatly need that because of the sharp decline last year in the agricultural sector. Of course, the government is taking a multi-pronged approach in putting up all these policies that's being brought to you guys, because we can basically, the government can not just look at the health of the people, because interconnected to health is the economy. Of course, like you guys would still need the job that you have. You guys still need the money to basically sustain your lives. So these are the things that's being done. A lot are actually being done by the government right now. It's trying its best as much as it can. Now, as to the next part, what is the private sector doing? Lorene, can you share some other things that the private sector is doing?
Sure. And I can only speak for my company. Of course, I'm not entirely sure about what other companies are doing. I can only share from my perspective. So middle management. So far, I think in general, I know it may sound selfish and a little bit simplistic, but it's keeping the company afloat. So as a company that employs at least 45,000 Filipinos, we have to make sure that we don't close down, and that we constantly are able to provide employment for these people, and also balance that with safety and health, right? And so I think that's what we've been doing, paying our taxes diligently. I think that's very important. But more than that, yeah, keeping our doors open and just finding ways to keep our doors open. It was especially difficult when we just immediately shut down the transportation, for example. Just to share a little bit about March 18 last year when it was announced, because I work at night, right? And so I came into work, I had a ride, but after work, there was nothing. I in short had to walk home. And if you think about it, it's not the pleasant weather in Baguio that, okay, a walk home is no big deal. It was not fun, ladies and gentlemen. It was hot. And I had to walk 7 kilometers. I checked it out. It's like from Baguio to La Trinidad or Green Valley. And I was not alone. A lot of us had to walk, etc. And so that's just my struggle. And that was just for, let's say, a day. But can you imagine having to transport and get those 45,000 employees in, right? And so I think when everything else shut down, we were one of those industries that just kept on going still and are still going. So we're hiring all the time. Please feel free if you're interested. But yeah, I think on one hand, yeah, just staying afloat and being smart about our decisions, that's the best thing we can do. And also just to share and just to magbuhat ng sariling bangko, if you know what I mean. We are still also active in our corporate social responsibility activities, in reaching out to our less than fortunate sectors of society. So that's still very much alive in the company. And so it's something that makes me proud, and it's something that probably is the reason why I've been with them for 11 years now. But yeah, I think so far that's the best we can do, and that's what we've been doing.
Yeah, okay. So of course, that's the company perspective. I just want to share to you guys that, MSMEs basically are micro, small, and medium enterprises is basically a major driver of the Philippine economic growth. In fact, in 1997, MSMEs accounted for up to 99.6% of total enterprise, and MSMEs employ at least 62% of the Philippine workforce. So I know that that even our government right now is actually moving for Balik Probinsya program, because we want our Filipino workforce who are congregating, basically, who are in Metro Manila, to go back to their provinces. And we're trying to empower these different private sectors in the provinces so that there will be employment in the provinces. In fact, one of the program of my office here in Hong Kong, which is called the Philippine Trade and Investment Center in Hong Kong, which is the representative office of the Department of Trade and Industry. One of my major projects that I do every month is the Trabaho of Negosyo Kabuhayan. This is a seminar, but now, of course, because of the pandemic, we have to digitize. It is a webinar that I hold every month to inform our OFWs, overseas Filipino workers. But for us in the Department of Trade and Industry, we prefer to call them OFIs, overseas Filipino investors, because we want and we are trying to pursue our OFIs to basically bring in their money, their hard-earned money in the Philippines and do business in the Philippines. Because we would rather that our OFIs, when they come home to the Philippines, that they will continue on by doing their own business, and not just be in the same footing they were when they left the Philippines. So that's one thing, because of course the government and the private sector would always interlink. I also want to share the fact that actually the Kyle has of recently registered, right, a business. So can you share a bit more about that? Of course, as to the digitization and the private sector aspect also.
Okay. So thank you for that, Bobby. During this pandemic, together with some business partners of mine from Iloilo and Capiz, as previously mentioned, I'm from the province of Aklan. We're in one island in Panay, so we're neighboring provinces actually. We have established a corporation, and our company is called Sika Transportation Solutions. The primary goal of our company is integrating e-scooters and e-bikes into the daily transport options of everyday Filipinos. Currently, we seek to operate in Iloilo City, since there is a movement within Iloilo supported by the LGU there as well, to transition into a more bike-friendly metropolis. There are protected bike lanes and even a several kilometer-long esplanade adjacent to Iloilo's main river, dedicated solely to bikers and pedestrians. Our company highly supports this movement, and we want to build on this. Eventually, we hope to expand to nearby provinces like Capiz and Aklan, and really promote a bike-friendly community and more sustainable transportation options. Well, the process by which we registered, despite the lockdowns, definitely a lot of our meetings were on Zoom, and we've had a lot of assistance from the SEC and the BIR as well. Their processes right now are streamlined and even very accommodating to young adults trying to make their way into the business landscape. So just to share as well a challenge we encountered in the birth of this company, actually, because our service is going to be app-based. So we contracted an app developer in India, and we all know India's situation with regard to COVID right now is kind of dire, and it actually really affected how our business moved forward. And right now we're kind of on a pause because our developer and their entire staff contracted COVID. So those are really one of the challenges in this new normal that businesses have to hurdle, but with due diligence and the proper research on how to be sustainable and to sustain your business during these times are definitely going to be one of your main tools in seeing this pandemic through and being an established entity in the next normal.
Yeah, so a lot of businesses right now, because of the initiatives of the government, the ease of doing business from the Department of Trade and Industry, of course, has been streamlined. Just what Kyle was saying, and you guys can already register via online. And just to share another thing, that during this time, basically the government is doing lots of policies, and basically, like a few last week, the AI roadmap was just released. So these are some of the things that the government and the private sector has been doing. The private sector is an important sector in of course in our society. So we all want that all businesses, as much as possible, keep afloat during this time. So now, as to the role of the employer, what is your employer doing, or what is the employer doing right now, Attorney Chan? What's your take on this? You're on mute.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I muted it earlier. For the employer, I think there are a lot of, I think as Lorene has mentioned earlier, the employer is generally just trying to stay alive during this COVID-19 pandemic. It's very difficult. A lot of businesses have closed, especially, for example, in Baguio City alone. This is a university-based and tourism-based community center or locality. You don't have students because you have online modalities now. So a lot of restaurants have closed up because they rely on students for their regular income streams, actually, and that's not available to them. For a lot of employers, I think they're trying to stay alive if their business modality is through face-to-face transactions. A lot, however, are trying to shift towards the digital environment because that's the only way they can move forward. So a lot of food establishments have registered through Food Panda, through Grab, because this is the only way that they can maintain a sustainable business. They try to amplify their business modules by amping their social media presence, Facebook, etc. Even recently, you have online food franchises, which are prevalent in the Philippines. But given how it's still actually, I think this is still a transition. We have to emphasize that. And there are still trends which come and go. Kyle mentioned a few trends that have come and gone. I also remember, I think copper mask, I was mentioning to Lorene, copper mask, which was so popular. Then I don't see anyone wearing copper masks anymore nowadays, actually. So you still have trends which come and go. So there are still things that you can capitalize on as a new business. And if you still have to be socially active today. And that's, I think, where employers have to shift their line of thought. They have to go digital. They have to capitalize on social media today in order to maintain their presence and in order to retain a business which is survivable. And also, migrating to online will reduce fixed costs. I know that running a business entails a lot of fixed costs. And as long as we can reduce those fixed costs so that we can just keep our businesses running on as minimum budget as possible, that's important for the employer. So the employer is trying to cut down on costs that are not necessary during this time. And I think as potential managers, that's all that we have to think about. Where can we cut costs? Where is it not necessary? Where can we recapitalize? Where can we reallocate funding so that we can continue to keep our business afloat and shift it towards new R&D structures, which are more vital for us as a business environment? I think that's more important, actually, more than
Yeah, I agree. Research and development is very important right now, most especially with everything that's going around us. We have to improve, we have to innovate. Those are very important things. How about you, Lorene? Can you share some things that your employer or the employer is doing right now?
So I think one of the bigger things that my employer is doing right now is just developing online platforms just to make that transition to work from home a little bit smoother. And also there's a shift in the business really where a lot more of our customers are shifting from having to call customer service into the chat or the email platforms now. So they're more interested. They're now developing ways to connect with the customer that way. Shop, right? We have to be able to connect there. So that's one thing that I think we are pushing a lot on, investing in technology and absolutely. And then, of course, on the other hand, just balancing that out as well with employee engagement because that's more difficult nowadays. And I think for the longest time, a lot of people downgraded employee engagement, but that's still a big deal, or it's a bigger deal nowadays because we are not in contact the way that we used to be. And so if you're working from home, it's just a tiny room that you're around or that you're in. How do you still motivate that employee? How do you still get that employee to be productive but not burned out? Right.
Yeah,
So
that's
that's
so true.
the sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's so true, Lorene. I totally agree with you. Yeah, and do you have other things to share?
That's it. Just those two
Yeah.
things that we're balancing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So how about you, Kyle? What do you think is the employer doing right now during this pandemic?
So we've had clients in DTI Saitem who were very challenged at the start of trying to keep up with our digital shows. But now I can say they're pretty much experts at it. They know the importance of having well-produced and well-curated digital assets like product photos, and they even have some inkling about basics of SEO or search engine optimization, where you make a campaign for your business to be easily searchable in Google, which will hopefully ultimately result into higher sales. So this really underscores the need to be attuned to the digital wave. My office calls people of my generation digital natives, but I think any person of any age can adapt to technology. I encourage everyone to look into Google's free trainings on everything digital, from social media to social media marketing. On the side of my own employer, the government, the DTI, despite off the record, the government not being known to make innovations that much, I think we've actually become comfortable with this new normal setup. Our office even developed an electronic daily time record system via a QR code that us employees scan every day to record our time in and time out during this work from home setup on a daily basis.
Yeah, I agree with Kyle. During this time, a lot of employers are actually providing lots of training. But of course, sadly for both of us, like Kyle and I mean, since we in the Department of Trade and Industry are really quite busy, we are unable to tap into these trainings being provided by the government. And of course, we in the private sector, I'm so sure that there are a lot of employers right now providing trainings, counseling, and all that stuff that I think that you should take advantage of, because this is going to be of importance to you guys in the future. Of course, moving forward. So what do you think is the employee doing right now, Attorney Chan?
I think for the employee, they're trying to adjust really, because for a lot of us who are fortunate to have that digital platform readily and available to work on or to work with, we're trying to work try to strike a work-life balance approach. Again, it's important during this time because since everything is digital, everyone can just text you out of the traditional work hours. The traditional 9 to 5 has all but dissipated in the digital work environment. And I think that's an important obstacle possibly that employees facing and trying to overcome. But also for a lot of employees, it's also a struggle to, especially in the government, I think, it's a struggle to prove that we are just as efficient when working through these alternative work arrangements than when we are not, when we are in a traditional face-to-face environment. And I think that spurs a lot of employers and employees to prove that they are just as efficient when working from home or working in the office or employing different alternative work arrangements. So we're trying to adjust and survive as well, but we're also trying to balance it out with our personal lives. And I think that is the challenge for the employee.
Yeah.
For the employee, sorry, yeah.
Yeah. I actually
I'm
agree
done.
with you, Cliff, because I think to our viewers, one thing that we must always remind ourselves during this time that we're using the digital platform so much is the fact that we should respect other people. Maybe we can send a message first before calling. Like for us here in Hong Kong, we've been going to work physically every day ever since, and we also have physical meetings. So sometimes people expect me to be like online immediately for an immediate Zoom meeting, which I find to be disrespectful sometimes because, we also have, we have to consider the differences around the world. Okay, so how about you, Lorene? What do you think is the employee doing right now?
Yeah, exactly that same thing as I've shared earlier. It's really balancing productivity, work and life balance. It was a struggle before pandemic because sometimes you spend a lot of time in the office, etc., and you have to go home and have some fun. But it's an extra difficult time now because your home is also your workplace. And not a lot of people are blessed enough to have like a separate office where they could have that mental thought that, okay, I'm done with work, I'm leaving, right? And then of course there are those awesome platforms like Viber, or all these places where their group chats proliferate, right? And so there is that expectation that you should be reachable 24/7, etc. And so that's really one that's really a big struggle that you have to come into terms with. And I think as part of the management team or future managers, that's something you have to think about. Like, be that boss who is respectful of not only your time but of people's time. Like, you have to be aware what time your employees what time are they in, and like set that expectation with yourself that you will only contact them within those time frames, etc. So the great thing about that adjustment is that it's happening. There's that awareness that it's a thing, and so we have to slowly work at it. And I'm hoping that it is something that will win, that will have that a lot of people will feel less toxic because they do have that line between work, that very clear line between work time and relaxation time. So that's it.
Yeah, I totally agree, Lorene. I can only imagine as two parents right now because of course their kids are also at home. So they do work while taking care of their kids. They do work while cooking a lot and doing a lot of things. So yeah, respect, really. How about you, Kyle?
I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
one
go
more
ahead,
thing
Lorene.
before. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of us can also relate, but there's also that contending with your environment, right? So it's hard to look professional in your meeting when there's like a rooster doing its thing in somewhere, and you're speaking with the clients all over the world, and then there's that rooster going on, and then of course the bark fest. Like, an online meeting apparently is not complete without dogs fighting in the background, and then a rooster doing something somewhere down the road, or your neighbors fighting, or a karaoke somewhere there. So they sound really funny, and they are in a way, but when you're in that moment, it's so stressful. Or if not that, it could even be your housemates. Like, you're in a very serious meeting, and the thing is, it's not everyone is blessed with a huge house, right, with rooms. And let's say your kitchen is right there, somebody's washing dishes, everybody can hear it. So I think that's also a struggle that we all have to face. But I think it's come to a point that we also have come to accept those sounds. But it's still no less mortifying when you're speaking with when you're trying to be formal and the big wigs are in the call. So yeah, I just wanted to share and point that out too.
Yeah, I'm on a personal level. I don't like it to be something that we're used to or something that's normalized already, to be honest about it. And just a funny anecdote. Actually, during one of our meetings with Kyle, I I didn't realize that I was not on mute and I burped. So these things happen. So like what I said, I don't like it to be normalized, but of course it is something that I guess most of us are used to already. So how about you, Kyle? What's your take on this?
So I agree so much with what Lorraine said, especially as a rank and file employee with regards to like respect on time, because I'm one of those people who are being messaged until midnight, and well, for service, I feel obligated to still attend either way. And with regards to as someone also who went home to the province, aside from those mishaps of like not being on mute, there was also this one time I was presenting to like an international partner, and my neighbor like right beside our house was killing well, kumakatay sila ng baboy basically. And you could hear
Oh my
the
gosh.
screams of the pig, and they were being nice about it. No, it's okay. We can't hear it as
That's
much
the
as
worst.
you probably. So, but I think it was heard, and they were just being polite. So, building on that as well, I think most employees like myself right now are trying to find work-life balance and also seeking personal and professional growth even during an uncertain environment. I think at the back of everyone's minds, we're all thinking, so what's next for me after this crisis? And a lot of us are planning our next move, whether this be additional academic pursuits, vying for a promotion, or shifting into a different industry entirely. I even read an article on LinkedIn predicting that once the economy and the general environment has restabilized, there will be a surge in resignations because most people tend to stay put during crises. So there are definitely a lot of overdue resignations, as that article implied. But so if you're part of that demographic, I think we should all exercise prudence in deciding for ourselves our paths and really go after what we find most fulfilling.
Yeah, I totally agree with Kyle. For everyone right now, this is actually the best opportune time for you guys to research, find out what you want, do trainings, do like, dip your toes into something new and basically find that happiness, those things that will make you happy. So I think that there are a lot of things that employees can partake of right now. I hope, like what I said, just try to find out these things, because I'm so sure that hopefully after all of this, of course, when I say after all of this, after the pandemic, I hope that we would, we would be able to do what we want, like basically, as employees. Now, as basically not work related, what do you think is everyone doing, Cliff? You're on mute.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah,
I
no
think,
worries.
as I mentioned before, everyone is just trying to survive, avoid, be safe, right? Because that's the number one priority for everyone. We're trying to socially distance because we're trying to be safe. But when our mind, our mental health is in decline, we're just trying to find an escape from the fatigue that is brought on by the pandemic. And this is difficult for all of us. We're trying to strike a balance between keeping ourselves safe, our families safe, and keeping ourselves sane. And I think this is just a struggle that everyone can relate to during this time. We know, I think even in Baguio, numbers are at hundreds right now. In Manila, it's 5,000. So we know people who have passed on due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's a difficult struggle for us all. We're just trying to keep safe. We're trying to avoid contraction of the virus. That's why we try to explore different vaccines varieties which are most feasible for us. We're hoping that it will be available for everyone in general, because it's not really available en masse right at this point in time. But we're trying to sign up to the government websites, LGUs, for COVID-19 vaccination if it's available. And of course, we're trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. At this point in time, sometimes maybe that's enough to survive, to know that this is a temporary state that we can endure. And as long as that we are healthy and that we keep our well-being intact, we'll get to a better place. It's difficult, especially for the young people of today. In America, they discussed how the financial crisis affected their generations, right? The generations of today will be even more so impacted because they do not have, they will be graduating to an environment where there are no jobs readily available for them. And this will impact them for years to come. Or they will have to be underemployed because of the scarcity of jobs, because so many companies have closed down. It's a difficult time for everyone. So everyone is trying to cope. And I hope everyone, I also urge everyone to try new skill sets online, because those are also options. I think uh, Lorene also has things about skill sets online that she can relate to as well. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. So how about you, Lorene?
So yeah, I think that was just it. Like, what is everyone doing? Just trying to survive, just doing the best we can. And so I guess another reminder to just cut ourselves some slack, right? Because sometimes we are hard on ourselves. But so I mentioned earlier, like, the speakers that our company invited over, and they shared that the stress levels that we have right now used to only happen like for a week or a day, like it's exam week, and so you're stressed, right? Or let's say you're unemployed for a certain period of time, so they were all temporary. But now we are on an extended level of stress that is, of course, unprecedented. And so your reaction to that stress, like if fight, flight, or freeze, um, can affect how or can be different, or can make you different from how you were before pandemic. And some people find that frustrating. They are irritable all the time, etc. And so we just have to remind ourselves that, or cut ourselves some slack, that this is our response to stress. And so these are special circumstances, and so we just have to make the best of the situation. And some people might find it what is cheesy, but yeah, be kind. Like, you don't know what the other person is going through. You don't know what deaths or difficulties other people are going through. So I think we should everyone should just take a step back and just cut everybody some slack and just be kind. That's me.
So how about you, Kyle?
Yeah, I think for the most part, us everyday Filipinos have tried playing our parts in trying to curb this pandemic and really just survive. The emergence of initiatives like community pantries really show that a lot of us want to help our community in our own way. And my heart goes out to these everyday heroes. For me, I won't impose what I think is the best way to go about in your personal lives during this time. But I do hope everyone is staying safe and everyone remains optimistic about the future. But of course, that goes without saying that investing on yourself and building on your skills during this downtime, like going to online trainings, are definitely activities that you won't regret.
Yeah, I totally agree. You guys should choose you. It's okay to say no. You don't always have to say yes to everything. And it's okay to go to a specialist, whether it be psychologist, psychiatrist. I know a lot of friends of mine who have gone to a psychologist or psychiatrist during this time. And because it's nothing bad, it's not bad, basically. Now, moving forward to the last part. So what is the next norm? What does the next normal look like? Attorney Cliff, how do you see the economy in the future?
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. So Nagpa-time check na sila sa amin. So very quick lang for the economy. I think people are looking forward towards a recovery. That was actually evident in the stock market level last year, no? I mean, for the economy, the investment level actually breached 7,000 again. But of course, due to ECQ, bumalik siya sa 6,500 levels. But I think everyone is trying to have a positive outlook na magkakaroon ulit tayo ng growth. Sana na hindi masyadong contracted. And that for now, everyone just wants to get their regular jobs back, I think. And that's, I think, what the government is trying to do at this point in time. Kaya nga yung pag-shift sa GCQ, they're trying to give people back their jobs. In fact, sa newspapers, yun ang gusto nilang mangyari. Yung mga tao na nawalan ng trabaho in the long term, they'll be able to get back their jobs, right? And that will be able to have an economy which is competitive with the international environment. Kaya nga yung sinakal, they're trying to, and you yourself actually, trying to maximize exports from the Philippines. And I think that's the target of the Philippines.
Yeah. And, the Asian Development Outlook for 2021, basically, in their publication, they forecasted that the Philippine economy is to grow by 4.5% in 2021 and 5.5% in 2022. So there is a very bright future ahead of us, most especially in the Philippines. So let's just hang on. Now, what do you think are the skills necessary for the future, Lorene?
So I think I also saw a question about this, and the way I'd like to answer is really how to be technologically savvy. You have to, if you want to be a successful employee out there, you have to be able to navigate through all of these platforms like Zoom. You have to figure that out. You have to be familiar with, let's say, Viber, with Adobe Connect, and all of these things. So those are key when it comes to whatever role you will take or whatever business you will go into, and it's also something that we went through in the company. Like we did a big update on how to handle virtual, let's say, classes and meetings. I'm part of, just to share, my role in the company involves onboarding new trainers and quality analysts. So part of what we did was to really talk to people about how different a face-to-face training or a face-to-face class is from a virtual training. And so we addressed that, and I think it's not something that only applies to our company, but in all companies that in all companies, because I think we're headed in the direction where we are going to take advantage of these platforms. That even if, let's say, we're open to have meetings face to face, I think there will be meetings that will still be held online now because it's more convenient. It's easier to organize, and it's obviously cheaper, right? And there's also the element of time that, especially if you're meeting with people in other time zones. So yeah, I think those are the skills that are very, very important if you want to be relevant and useful in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you, Lorene. So as to the question, what are the opportunities that the government must take advantage of? Like what I shared to you guys earlier, since we have lockdowns, so there are lesser people out there. So our government has improved its infrastructure, the roads, bridges, and all that. The internet, definitely, like what I said earlier, because the government knows that digitization is of importance. We have, like what I shared also earlier, policies are being brought out, roadmaps are being brought up as to AI, artificial intelligence, because this is the future. That will be the future, really. We need to innovate. We need to adjust to what the future would be. Now, as to the question, what are the opportunities that the employer must take advantage of? What do you think, Attorney Chan? Are these opportunities?
Yes, I'm sorry. There are a lot of actually social amelioration efforts on the part of the government. If you check the website of the DTI, there are most likely packages. The CDA, the Cooperative Development Authority, you might find packages as well. If you read the nitty-gritty of Bayanihan Act 1, 2, and of course, if we hope positively for Bayanihan Act 3, there will be several opportunities that the employer will be able to take advantage of. In fact, I've seen posts again of employers that speaking about the fact that they were able to get financial assistance for the employees who were laid off during ECQ. So these are available in the website of DOLE. If you look at SSS, they also have available programs for employees, because an employer, you also have to look out for your employees. And if your employees were laid off during this period, there are advantages that there are benefits that you can avail of from DOLE, from SSS or GSIS as the case may be. And for economic business programs, I think Kyle has mentioned that the DTI, as well as Atty. Mabalot here, has mentioned that the DTI have programs for employers that they can take advantage of for purposes of export, for showcasing of their business models to prospective investors. And I think for us, that's important for us to look forward. The employer must be able to market himself, take advantage of the heightened social media environment today. There are no social borders because of social media. So you really have to boost your social media profile in order to be competitive. And as mentioned by Lorraine, you have to upgrade the skills of your employees so that they are able to compete in the social media environment today. If your employees are not updated, then how will you compete? So you have to train your employees accordingly as well. Retool them to fit then with the digital platform and environment. And these are, I think, are the opportunities that the employer must take advantage of.
Yeah. So actually, another thing that the employer must take advantage of right now is basically to improve its structure. It's high time for the corporations, the businesses to basically look into its structure, see what's not working, and improve it. Make it much more better than before. So as to the next question, what are the opportunities that the employee must take advantage of? As what we have been discussing earlier, we have said that employees really need to take the opportunities such as trainings, added learnings, and added experiences that they can take part of. What other things do you think, Kyle, can employees take advantage of during this time?
So there's definitely a shift in the dynamics, especially for my generation, or again, what my office calls digital natives. I've definitely been exposed to certain projects because of my comfortability with digital marketing and social media use. I encourage everyone, whether Gen Z, millennial, or any age demographic, to at the very least try to grasp the concept and the concepts and the usability of these emerging platforms and how they can help you as an individual or as a business owner. I know it can seem daunting at times, but I am certain that there are people who are more than willing to assist you. You can also start with simple steps like researching how Instagram or Facebook can help you with a business or in the promotion of a product or service. There are also a lot of tools that the internet has right now that can help you with these, like Google's digital trainings.
Yeah.
I think, sorry, just quickly, I think DTI, DICT, PTIC, they have a long series of webinars on retooling employees, and these are all free. So if you're an employee and you want to have training credits, which is now recognized by the CSC, of course, for online training, that's an opportunity to take advantage of these free trainings, which otherwise cost a lot of money.
Yeah, actually, to add on what Attorney Chan just said, all government agencies are now very active in social media, in the digital platform. So, if you have any inquiries, just send a chat or send an email. Definitely, the government agency will respond to you. Now, as to the opportunities that everyone must take advantage of, definitely, like what we have been sharing to you guys, it's high time to basically train, do things that you want during this time, and of course, provided that you don't hurt other people. Everyone needs to, it's high time to reconnect to your family and friends, and all other things that were discussed earlier. So what are the career trends that you have noted that you think will be of importance in the future, Lorene? Have you guys in your company like looked into this by any chance?
I don't think not necessarily career trends, but more we were more focused really on the skills, and because those career trends may change. We never know, but what we focus more on would be the skills, so that whatever that we wanted to build on, so that whatever career you do choose, these skills are still going to be relevant. And I think that is something for everyone to think about. Not doing a pigeonhole and just sticking to that and say this is just what I'm going to be, but instead learning the skills that will help you with whatever career path you decide to take on later.
Yeah, I actually agree with Lorene. Let us definitely digitization is happening around us. Definitely everywhere. Everyone will be using the internet, but as to profession wise, we'll always need everyone. Like lawyers, doctors, engineers, architects. So do what makes you happy. Take the career that you want, where you're good at. Don't force yourself. Like during my time, people were entering nursing schools just because, and now I have lots of people I know who are very unhappy. So just choose the career that you are good at, okay, or the things that will make you happy. Now, as to the last question, what will be the cultural differences that we might expect? So this part, I think, is also of importance because, like what I told you guys earlier, the differences that's happening all around us definitely will be ingrained into the different cultures within the Philippines and around the world. For example, here in basically in mainland China. In mainland China, most of the people there are not using masks anymore. Here, we're doing physical meetings. We're also, when I do physical meetings, I do shake hands. But I guess in the Philippines, definitely physical meetings are not being done right now. Yeah, shake hands are not being done right now. So that's
the
why
numbers are still high.
yeah, that's why I'm saying cultural differences, because before you enter a certain region or country, still try to find out what do they do there, like what is okay to do there. So okay, because it's definitely gonna change everywhere. It's gonna change a lot. Okay, so as to when the next normal will be, some people are saying it's 2025, but definitely, guys, it's only going to happen if there's going to be herd immunity. And you know what we are talking about? Get vaccinated, guys. We might have all these differing opinions as to vaccination, but get vaccinated, because don't be selfish. Don't just think of yourself during this time, because you also have to think about the people you encounter, your family, your friends. Okay, so even if you're against vaccination, think about your loved ones. Don't be selfish. How about you guys? Do you have any other opinions as to this last question, or do you have any other things that you want to share to our audience? Cliff, do you have? No.
I think for cultural differences, I agree with you with what you've mentioned. That in terms of cultural differences, we have to be mindful, especially in the social environment today. If we deal with international clients, what will be the social protocol in social media? Because when it's a physical environment, you get physical cues, but when it's social media, it's so much more difficult. So we have to research when we deal with international communities, international business organizations. And even now, when we are connecting with different ethnicities within the Philippines, we also have to be mindful of their backgrounds so that we do not become offensive to cultural sensibilities. I think more than ever, because of the lack of geographic borders in the social media environment. We have to be politically aware and politically educated in terms of what it is to be socially upright. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Lorraine? Do you have any other things you want to share?
Just that I think it's come to light recently how we may as a nation not be as politically correct or as forward as we would like to think, because there are no longer borders, and because it seems like there are no limits to what we share online, right? And that's our exposure. There seems to be a little bit of a carelessness, and it becomes a mirror of what we are as a nation. Like I think recently I saw that, and not to I saw that thing how I think one of contestants of a different country, we made disparaging remarks about that person or racist remarks. When I say we netizens, etc. So I think that's also one thing that I am hoping will start changing. Like because we are exposed to all of these things now, I think I hope that we start to become more open to or more politically correct, more caring really to all these other countries, especially now that those borders are blurred because of the online environment.
Yeah, I agree, Lorraine. How about you, Kyle? Do you have any other things you want to share?
Yeah. So I think there is literature backing up the claim that after a collective crisis, people tend to make the most out of the succeeding period, or what was previously known as the Roaring Twenties. There are even predictions that we will have another Roaring Twenties in this 21st century after COVID.
Yay.
So I'm hopeful that after these dark times, there will be a boom in travel, infrastructure, and general commerce. But at the same time, we should still be cautious because if anything, COVID-19 has shown us how volatile our systems are.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I just want to share, since most of our audience are in Baguio, we should, like people in the tourism industry must also start looking into other aspects that they might want to enter into, because definitely it will take time. And if you just sit and wait for things to improve, please try to be proactive. Okay, so I think as to the main part of the presentation, that's it. So I think we're gonna go to the question and answer. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you to our resource speaker, Atty. Mabalot, and our panelists, Atty. Chan, Ms. Tukulan, and Mr. Taay, for a very personal yet relatable and relevant discussion. Before we proceed with the question and answer, I would just like to read a comment sent in our chat. So, good afternoon. If I may, I would like to add this topic, please. As part of the government providing services to our local and international investors, I would like to add that the government is also providing reprieves and support just so that they would keep operating here in the Philippines instead of transferring operation, technologies, knowledge, and research to other countries. So that is from Ms. Jalaisa Kalinina Dominguez.
Yeah, I
Thank
agree
you,
with
Ms.
her, because
Jalaisa.
that's why we're very hands-on in the Department of Trade and Industry from the beginning that they were pursuing them to do business in the Philippines until they are there in the Philippines. I always emphasize that with my meetings with foreign investors, that we will always be there to support them and assist them in any way that we can. We try to remove the bureaucratic side of the other government agencies, and we do our best. Yep. Thank you. Just needed to say that to add on. Yeah.
Okay. So now that we've finished the panel discussion, the floor is open for your questions. You may type them in the Q&A chat box, or you may raise your hand so Sede and Joanna may address you. So mga ka-normal, game ka na ba?
For the other people, can we just type in answers if ever?
Yeah.
We'll be having Sedi and Joanna to ask the questions for our participants.
Okay, thanks.
And thank you, Ate Christine. And to start our Q&A, we would like to call Ms. Rachel Garcia for her question.
Okay, while waiting for the question of Ma'am Rachel Garcia, we will proceed to the question of Mr. Roel Gapasin. For the government employees, we believe in the proclamation of the Office of the President's claim that we are doing excellently in the pandemic response.
Okay, so it's the question is very opinionated, right? So like what we were emphasizing earlier, the government can only do so much. Like everywhere in the world, everyone is trying to do their best. Even here in Hong Kong, to be honest, just to share to you guys, like people, the government is giving subsidy like 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, and if you convert that into pesos, that's about 70,000 pesos per Hong Kong resident. But they still complain. They still complain that it's not enough. I think as to that portion, to be honest, that question, like what I said, the government can only do so much as to that. As to if I'm satisfied as to what the government is doing, I think no one is satisfied with everything in life. Okay, so I think if Attorney Chan and Kyle would like to answer this, they may do so. But I think yeah, that's my take on that question.
Maybe Kyle has inputs.
So I think I can comment based on my own perspective from my. So we all know that like COVID restrictions have definitely hampered like the supply chain, like the movement of goods and everything. So, well, I can say for my part in our own agency that we've really been fighting tooth and nail to continue for business continuity and to continuously provide our services to the MSMEs. So there are definitely those different aspects of a government response to this crisis that should be considered.
Okay. I agree. I think it's a difficult balancing act, to be honest, because on the one hand, if we go purely from a medical and protective standpoint, then we'll be on an extended lockdown until numbers go to very, very manageable levels. Unfortunately, given the different strains, if we go on that route, the difficulty is that our economy continues to suffer, and it has already suffered. So the government is really placed in an unenviable position, but I think it's trying to do its best to balance both sides of the coin. And for now, I think, like the WHO, the World Health Organization has pointed out, the government is in fact trying to do its best to maintain this. And simply put, there are variants in the mutation of the COVID-19 pandemic that has really brought on complications. And we see it that it's not just in the Philippines, but there's a global rise in areas such as India. So truly, given all circumstances, everyone is, including the government, is trying to do its best. That's what I have to say at this point.
Thank you. Next question.
Miss Clarissa Diaz is raising her hand also. We would like to call Miss Clarissa Diaz for her question.
I would like to ask lang, do you think the prediction that it will be into 2025, the new normal, do you think it will really take that long for us to 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 live a life near to our previous normal.
Um, uh, I think for on my end, I think that it will take some time because of the differing situations of the different countries around the world. Definitely, so we will need that period of time to basically adjust and be much more open into going out, meeting people and all that. So that's why that I on a personal level, I do think that as to the experts saying that it's up to 2025, I think that that's actually the most feasible period of time. Yeah. How about my others, the other speakers? What do you think?
I think on my end, it's a bit of a medical question, right? Because traditionally, pandemics have lasted for about 3 years, right? And after the 3 years, there's still a period of adjustment. And given that COVID-19 still has a large number of mutations and variants, we have to take that also into account, because travel has really largely exposed the global populace to a pandemic, unlike before. Because in previous historical pandemics, viruses have mainly been contained in that area, but now travel has really opened it up, and there are new variants from all over the globe, and we have to account for that. So given that, I'm not a doctor actually, but I'm just hypothetically surmising that it seems to be a reasonable estimate at this point in time, given that the traditional epidemic before was lasted from about roughly 3 years. But given that this pandemic, we have different mutations, a large number of mutations and strains, it seems reasonable, and we have to adjust given that time. I don't know if my other panelists would have anything to add.
Yeah, let me just share that. I think I'd like to leave that to the experts really, as far as assuming that or like estimating when we're going to be back to the or nearest the way it was before. But I'd like to also examine like why do people usually ask that question, and it's more often than not because they're waiting for that time so that they can do these things again, like, oh, I'll be able to travel, I'll do these things. And I think that's what I'd like to respond to in a way, like, don't wait until 2025 to live your life. Like, don't think that you're pausing it right now and then you're just
Yeah,
okay,
that's a
so
good
I'm
point.
just gonna stay like this, and then I'm hoping when the experts say at 2025 I can start doing things again. You're gonna waste a lot of years. So I think the mindset should be now is the new normal, and so I'll do what I can now, and live my life the best and safest way now, and not wait for some like a magical time where I can do the things that I love once again. So that's my take on that.
On my end, I think I'd like to address that from an international relations perspective. Seeing as we're not professionals in the medical field, I think whether we meet the 2025 prediction or earlier, it really has a lot to do with global cooperation, like aid coming into India, especially with regard to the double mutant strain of COVID-19. And I'm hopeful that we do meet the 2025 prediction and even earlier, seeing as countries like the United States have eased intellectual property rights aspects with regard to vaccines they have manufactured. So I do hope the international community continues towards this trajectory, because we all know that when no one is, as long as there are people who are still vulnerable, everyone is vulnerable.
I agree. That's so true.
Thank you.
So,
We have another question from our participants. What are the strategies to handle employees' resistance to change, especially in the new normal?
what do you
May
think,
I-
Lorraine? Yeah.
Yeah. So part of my job is to help transition people, right? um, I think one of the major things is what we call WIFM, or what's in it for you. As adults, we are all driven by what we can gain from certain actions. And I think when you impose change just because, with no explanations, you will have people resist. But if you explain why that change is needed, and you are speaking with well, a normal, an average, reasonable person, I think they are more likely to follow. I mean, some people are just stubborn, period, right? But I think generally, if you explain, okay, why are we requiring people to wear masks, even if we're all safe here, etc., or whatever policy you're trying to impose, I think just at the very least explain why that's needed, and they're more likely able um, to follow the whatever change that you're trying to impose. That's number one. Number two, be the change. So a lot of people resist the change because they don't see their leaders embodying that change that they want. So if they say everyone has to wear masks, but their leaders are not wearing masks, definitely you will see a lot of employees not following. So, and resisting whatever change you're trying to, or that rule that you're trying to impose. So so I guess, yeah, that's it. Two things: make sure that you explain why, so what's in it for them, and number two, you exemplify what and you be an example for whatever change that you're trying to impose.
I agree. I have to say, I believe empathy is important nowadays more than ever. But after trying to communicate and understand, there's still resistance. Then, as an employer or a supervisor, you have to exercise your disciplinary powers, right? A notice of explanation if necessary, and the execution of necessary administrative proceedings for your company, right? Um, Give feedback as necessary, verbal warnings, written warnings, because they have to take this seriously. Because if they are employees and you are the employer, you have to assert your authority as an employer. Otherwise, your business will suffer if you maintain or retain employees who are not as productive. I think
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's our answer to that question. Maybe we can move to the next question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We have another question from Ms. Rachel Garcia. Nursing education is compelled to shift to remote learning, and it somehow compromises development of actual application nursing skills. Simulation is not comparable to actual practice of skills. How can we ascertain the quality of our nursing graduates?
Maybe Attorney Chan, do you think you'd be able to answer that?
I'm not exactly a medical professional.
Yeah.
So again, I can't see from so I can't relate personally, but as far as I can recall, institutions such as Pamantasang Lungsod ng Maynila have actually requested from CHED for the ability to have limited face-to-face classes for the medical profession. And I think CHED has actually accepted that proposal. I'm not sure, I'm sorry, but I did read something to that effect. So I think this is something that we should explore because CHED is not totally close to it, given PLM's request, Pamantasang Lungsod ng Manila. I think if we benchmark from this example, we can learn from that. But still, notwithstanding that aspect, I think there are still ways if we have medical videos that are really procured well online. I think there are colleges which have adapted well online and they have sourced medical videos which are very in-depth, very graphic, if that needs to be the learning modality for nursing students. That's all I can see for now. I'm sorry, but I'm not a medical professional, so I can't exactly have a very valid opinion about it. But that's my opinion, personally.
Yeah, does anyone from the other speakers would like to comment on this?
Just to add a little bit, as coming from a perspective of someone who was previously with the Department of Labor and Employment, although I'm not really, to be honest, I'm not that updated right now with the inner developments within the department. I'm sure the Professional Regulation Commission is actively adjusting their parameters in light of the new learning adjustments with regard to the nursing profession.
Okay, so I think that's our take on as to that one. Next question, please.
Thank you very much. Time check is already 3:45, and as much as we want to answer all of your questions, we only have a limited time. So for our last question, this is a question from Mr. Gapasin. With the new normal demanding emphasis on mental health, what would you advise someone who has become severely unsatisfied with their job? Risk employment by finding a new one, or risk mental health by remaining in their current employment?
Well, for me, okay,
Sorry.
no, on a personal level, like what I said, choose you. Always choose you, because at the end of the day, work will be there, but if you're dead, work will continue. You will not continue as a human being. So choose you. Well, like I know in a lot of departments in the government, there's lots of openings right now because a lot of people are quitting and they are not thinking about the pandemic. To be honest, choose you. So how about you, Lorraine? What do you think?
Well, for me, of course, I am I don't conservative. I'm not a good risk taker. I'm risk averse. There, that's the term. So for my mental health well-being, I'm not comfortable quitting a job amidst a pandemic. But that's just me, right? It's a case-to-case basis. So I'm with Attorney Mabalot when he says, "You do you. You do what you think is good for you, for your family, etc." But I guess what I'd like to do now is just give a little bit of an advice, like, because it's not always black and white, right? It's not always stay and go insane and leave or be hungry.
Agree.
Like, you have to think about, did I do everything in my power already to ease this situation? Because talk to your boss, like, sir, I am having a really hard time. These are the things, like, I'm thinking of quitting. Have that conversation. Just by having that conversation, you can already ease a little bit of the stress you have. But more than that, maybe your boss can do something about what you're stressed about. Maybe you're stressed about something that your boss could just fix. Or maybe if it's your boss that you're stressed about, skip a level, go to his leader. And I'm hoping you're part of a company that has good leaders, right? Who will be willing to listen to you, and all of that. So I'm thinking, like I said, circle of control. Do everything that you can to manage, let's say, the stress, to go through the right channels, talk to HR if you need to, before you do something irreversible and quit. But if you have a job you're looking at already and you think you're going to be happier there, then I support, go ahead. But just make sure that you already did what you can in your current situation, to fix whatever it is that your issue is, before doing something that is irreversible. That's me.
Yeah. I just want to add that, like what we were emphasizing earlier, seek professional help. If you're unable to seek professional help, talk to your friends, talk to your family, or talk to a stranger. If that's gonna be much more easier for you, just vent. Just release whatever you want, what's building up inside you. Don't be, I think there are a lot of like free things right now. Just check online, research. That's it. Thanks.
Yes, I agree. I'd like to add that you do have mental hotlines available, DOH. In fact, DOH has already remarked that there was an increase in the number of calls it received due to the increase in COVID-19 cases, actually. This is a very important question, I think, because a lot of people are feeling stressed from their current work because of the shift in environment, work modalities, work environment, etc. So one thing that you have to ask yourself is, one, is it because, well, first, of course, you have to talk with your superiors. That's the most thing, right? Your immediate boss, because that might facilitate changes in your current work modality. Second is, check, is this industry standard level stress? Because what is the industry you're working, your industry? Is it common in your industry? If you shift and change jobs, is it still present in the other work business environments that you'll have or be exposed to? Otherwise, you might be moving somewhere else, but be exposed to the same stressors, but have lower ranking, lower pay, so it might not be as beneficial to you. Thirdly, before you make major life-changing decisions such as your employment, think about the necessary financial basics. Do you have an emergency fund? Remember, your emergency fund should be about what, 6 months worth of your expenses savings. If you have a family, it's more important that you are able to support them for a number of months before you are sure that you are able to transfer to work where you're able to support them. So make sure that you have a stable emergency fund before you make life-changing choices that would stop you from having a sustainable income to support yourself. And of course, my advice always is, if it doesn't really work out, you're not satisfied, then try to make sure that you have a job already waiting on the wings when you transfer. Uh, and there are many ways to actually ensure that there are some ways of which you can try to ensure that you have jobs. You have jobs online, such as being a virtual assistant, such as freelance writing, freelance digital work in social media editing, which you can try to dip into so that uh, you can try to secure online freelance work just to tide you over before you get a next job. Uh, these things are important because you may be stressed now, but being jobless and being without any source of income will even be more stressful if you have a family to support. So those are things that I urge you to consider always when you make these tough decisions in life. Your financial considerations for you and for your family should also come first also. Maybe
Okay
Kyle has
po.
something to add.
Yeah, just to add a little, as someone who has definitely had that dilemma in recent times, I think it's all just a matter of weighing the pros and cons with regard to your next step. But at the same time, with your own individual well-being being greatly considered, as careers are not linear, and even finances to a certain extent are a replenishable resource.
Okay, thank you po.
Okay.
Thank you to our participants for your questions and to our panelists for your honest responses. And just a friendly reminder, we have posted the evaluation form link in the chat box. Please don't forget to accomplish the form. And moving on. In behalf of the University of the Philippines, Baguio, College of Social Sciences, Institute of Management, we would like to award the certificate of appreciation to Roberto Mabalot Jr. for his invaluable contribution and support as the resource speaker on the topic New Normal Na, Game Ka Na Ba? In the virtual lifelong learning seminars in management with the theme Transitioning to the New and Next Normal, Challenges, Risks, and Opportunities held on May 15, 2021. Given this 15th day of May 2021 at the University of the Philippines, Baguio City, signed Professor Erlinda Castro Palaganas and Professor Diane A. Corpus. And also, we would like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Clifford C. Chan, Ms. Lorraine Cristel Duculan, and Mr. Kyle Dominic G. Taay for their invaluable contribution and support as one of our panelists for today. And to finally end our webinar, let us give the floor to Richard Alan Estrellado.
Great, thank you, Ate Christine. Okay, so as we reach the end of today's webinar, so we will leave a poem written in haiku. It says there, we isolate now, So when we gather again, no one is missing. By Miraya Maro. So as we dive into the topic of transitioning to the new normal, we would like to thank our resource speaker, Atty. Roberto Mabalot Jr., and the panelists, Atty. Clifford Chan, Ms. Laureen Cristel Duculan, and Mr. Kyle Dominic Taay for discussing this interesting topic that is timely and where we can all relate to, and hoping that you've learned something from it. So please give them a big round of applause.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we would also like to express our appreciation to all of the participants for joining us here in Zoom space and also on YouTube live stream, and also taking your time to patiently listen to our speaker and panelists. And of course, our webinar series co-sponsor, the Philippine Nurses Association Incorporated, Cordillera Administrative Region. Thank you. Also, don't forget to accomplish the evaluation form. So the link is posted in the chat box. So please finish that form. Before we end, if you're interested, there are also upcoming webinars for the next 3 weeks. So on May 22nd, the webinar title is A Well-Balanced Life, Pandemic Edition. Then on May 29th, the webinar title is Hashtag Money and Me, Take Control of Your Finances. And lastly, on June 5th, the webinar title is The Me in Mental Health During the Pandemic and Beyond. So you can register in this in the link flash in your screen,
lahat ng mga topics
tinyurl.com/UPB management webinars, or you can scan the QR code here. So please copy and paste that to your browser, and don't forget to invite your family and friends too. So that's it for today's webinar. So thank you so much for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and stay safe, everyone. Bye, everyone.
I thought you'll take photos.
Take photos for that. Okay.
Photos daw, photos.
No, because I remembered you wanted to take photos, right, guys? So,
Yes.
yeah.
Stop sharing na lang siguro. Stop sharing and open your